Hey everyone, Jackson Galaxy here, and let me tell you, I've seen my fair share of catastrophes. But there's a big difference between the everyday chaos a cat brings into your life and the unexpected turmoil of a natural disaster or a family emergency. We never want to think about these things happening, but the truth is, they can. And when they do, being prepared can make all the difference in the world, especially for our furry, scaly, or feathered family members. We love our animals, and these tips are all about keeping them safe, fed, and as stress-free as possible when the unexpected jumps up and bites. Alright, let's talk about the absolute essentials. The stuff every pet parent needs to have ready to grab and go at a moment's notice. I'm talking about the pet emergency kit, your little buddy's own personal go bag. First things first, food. You want enough for at least 2 weeks, and I'm not talking about just a couple of scoops. Think about how much your furry friend eats in a day and multiply that. And don't forget the water. Again, a 2-week supply is the goal. We're talking about survival here, folks. Now, what are they going to eat out of? Pack collapsible bowls, a can opener if you're using canned food, and any utensils you use for feeding. Trust me, in a stressful situation, you don't want to be scrambling for a spoon at 2:00 a.m. Next up, medications. If your pet takes any daily medications, make sure you have a good supply in the kit, along with copies of their medical records. And don't forget flea and tick prevention. Even in a crisis, those little buggers don't take a break. Now let's talk comfort items. Just like us, our animals find comfort in familiar things, especially during times of stress. Pack their favorite blanket, a toy or two, and maybe even an old t-shirt that smells like you. These things might seem small, but they can make a world of difference in calming your pet down. Finally, make sure your pet has proper identification. A collar with up-to-date tags is crucial. And consider microchipping if you haven't already. It's an extra layer of security that could save their life. We've got the emergency kit ready to roll, but what about the food you have at home? Proper storage is crucial, people. We're talking about keeping that food fresh and tasty, even if it sits on the shelf for a while. First off, ditch the original bag. Once you open that bag, it's like inviting an army of hungry ants to a picnic. Transfer that food into airtight containers. We're talking Tupperware, mason jars, anything that locks in freshness and keeps out moisture, pests, and those pesky little critters that love to nibble on your pet's food. And don't forget to label. Write the date you opened the bag on the container so you know exactly how fresh it is. Remember, even the best stored food has a shelf life. Check those expiration dates regularly and toss anything that's past its prime. Now, where you store the food is just as important as how you store it. Keep it in a cool, dry place away from direct sunlight and any sources of heat. Think of it like storing fine wine but for your furry friend. A pantry or a dedicated cabinet is ideal. Let's face it, our pets thrive on routine. They love knowing when to expect their next meal, when it's playtime, and when it's cuddle time. And you know what? Sticking to a regular feeding schedule is even more important during times of stress. Why? Because it provides a sense of normalcy and security when everything else seems to be turned upside down. So even if you're evacuated to a shelter or staying with friends and family, try your best to maintain your pet's regular feeding routine. If they're used to eating at 7:00 a.m. and 7:00 p.m., do your best to stick to that schedule. Now, I know what you're thinking. Jackson, easier said than done when we're dealing with a crisis. And you're right, it's not always going to be perfect. But even a little bit of routine can go a long way in reducing your pet's anxiety. If you have to adjust their feeding time slightly, do it gradually over a few days to give them time to adjust. And remember, consistency is key. The more you can stick to their routine, the calmer and more secure they'll feel. We've talked about having a 2-week supply of your pet's regular food in their emergency kit, but what if that supply runs out? Or what if, heaven forbid, your picky eater suddenly decides they hate their once favorite kibble? That's where having a backup food supply comes in handy. And I'm not just talking about having a few extra cans or bags of their usual brand. I'm talking about branching out and having a variety of food types on hand. Think wet food, dry food, even freeze-dried or dehydrated options. The key here is to introduce these new foods gradually long before any emergency strikes. You don't want your pet's first experience with a new food to be in the middle of a stressful evacuation. Start by mixing a small amount of the new food with their regular food. gradually increasing the ratio over time. This way, their palate gets accustomed to the new flavors and textures, and they'll be more likely to eat it if they have to rely on it during an emergency. We all know our pets can't exactly tell us when something's wrong, at least not with words, but they communicate in other ways, and changes in their eating habits are a major red flag. Think of it like this. Your pet's appetite is a barometer for their overall health and well-being. If they're suddenly not eating as much as usual, or if they're completely off their food, something's up. Now before you panic, keep in mind that a loss of appetite doesn't always mean a medical emergency. It could be something as simple as stress, a change in environment, or even just a picky moment. But it's always better to err on the side of caution, especially if the change in appetite persists for more than a day or two. If you notice any other unusual symptoms like vomiting, diarrhea, lethargy, or weight loss, it's time to call the vet. They'll be able to determine the underlying cause and recommend the best course of action. Remember, early detection is key when it comes to your pet's health. We've covered a lot of ground, from packing an emergency kit to monitoring your pet's eating habits, but there's one last crucial piece of the puzzle: having a list of emergency contacts readily available. And I'm not just talking about your vet's number, although that's obviously at the top of the list. I'm talking about creating a comprehensive list that includes all the essential numbers you might need in a crisis. Think of it like your personal Pet Avengers team, ready to assemble at a moment's notice. Start with your veterinarian's number, then add your local animal control, animal shelters, and any 24-hour emergency animal hospitals in your area. Next, add the number for the ASPCA Animal Poison Control Center, APCC. They're a lifesaver if your pet ingests something they shouldn't have. Finally, include the contact information for a trusted friend or family member who can help out in a pinch. So there you have it, folks. 6 essential pet feeding tips to ensure your furry, scaly, or feathered friends are as prepared as possible for any unexpected event life throws your way. Remember, a little preparation goes a long way in keeping our beloved animals safe, healthy, and fed during times of uncertainty. If you found these tips helpful, hit that subscribe button and give this video a big thumbs up. And as always, stay safe, stay prepared, and keep those tails wagging.